Hey everybody, Dr. Shook here. Hope you're doing well today. I had to, sorry, just going to dismiss some of these notifications. I had to switch up the way that I'm doing my live streams, at least for today. My computer had a Windows update. Those are always fun. I've had Windows updates crash computers now, like I don't know how many times, but it wouldn't recognize my microphone. So we're gonna do this on my different location here in my house and on my cell phone. So I hope everyone's doing well. What I wanted to talk about was what's the best diet for Hashimoto's? And this is relevant to Graves' disease. This is relevant to thyroid physiological dysfunction. This is really the dietary approach that I have observed works best for people that have thyroid problems, autoimmune problems. It works for hormonal problems because a lot of these issues they share similar physiological breakdowns. Okay, so it's important to understand that if you have your physiology is breaking down or it's not optimal, then what you end up with is you end up with dysfunctional physiology on multiple levels. And if the goal with dietary intervention is to really try and take a simple approach that will improve multiple things at once, right? A simple approach. That's really what diet will do. So when you start looking at what's the best dietary approach, I mean, I've probably been exposed to and asked about probably well over 15 different dietary approaches, probably more than that actually, but usually the diets that people ask me about are specific to autoimmunity most of the time. So I hear about things like elimination diets, and people ask me about ketogenic diets, and is intermittent fasting okay? And what about a carbohydrate specific diet and a paleo diet? And the list goes on and on and on. And I get a lot of questions. And here's the thing. I've seen and I've heard people share with me their stories, but we've seen clinically people improve with different types of diets. So I mean, the thing is there's not one diet. It's very important to understand this. There's not one perfect human diet. That's the first thing to understand. There's not one perfect diet. We all have different genetics, so we're all going to respond a bit differently to dietary interventions. And I mean, a really good example of that would be to discuss the ApoE4 genetic variation that we know predisposes some people to Alzheimer's disease. Okay, it predisposes them. It's a risk factor, and we know that those people, like on diets that tend to be higher in saturated fat, they have a greater probability. Doesn't mean they're going to for sure, but if they have this ApoE variation, to have higher lipids with saturated fats. So for those people, that may be something that's negative, right? That might be a negative, that might be a risk factor for another disease process. And that's just an example that we know we have good research and good evidence for. But with any of these dietary approaches, you have to understand that there's a degree for everyone for bio-individuality. So you have a genetic and a more ideal diet for you. But what I've observed is that we've seen several patterns kind of emerge as people have gone through these dietary approaches, and the issues really I think we've seen that some of the problems, ketogenic diets, I've seen some people do really well with ketogenic diets. I have not seen them be able to sustain them forever. I've seen them not be able to reach their health goals with them, most of them long term, because it's not sustainable. It's not something that they enjoy doing. I mean, some people tell me that they'll say, I love ketogenic diets. I love the foods. I mean, I do too. I mean, personally, I but I cycle dietary approaches. Here's the thing: I think you have to have variation in your diet, but there are a few core things that are important here. First of all, the diet. So it's important to understand that there's no. People can improve with their thyroid function. People can improve autoimmunity, a lot of their systemic physiology with different diets. Okay, so that's the first thing to understand. So you don't necessarily have to do one type of diet. Okay, people have gotten better and will testify to the fact that they've tried paleo diets and done amazingly well. They've tried ketogenic diets and done amazingly well. They just started doing intermittent fasting and they're doing amazingly well. But then you'll have just as many people tell you that they did not do well with those dietary interventions. So the important thing to understand is that there's not one diet that's best for everyone. Some of the core things that are common themes that we see with dietary changes that tend to work. Okay, that tend to work, right? So things that we see with dietary changes that tend to work is that the diets will tend to remove immunologically reactive foods. So foods that your immune system is reacting to. The diets tend to eliminate the majority of those foods. So that's really important to keep in mind. A lot of these diets will either restrict food groups quite a bit, or they will change your diet from what you're currently eating to a dietary intake that is different than what you were eating before, at least to a large degree. And so that will tend to remove foods from your diet that are immunologically reactive. Now, if you don't understand what I mean by immunologically reactive, there's a lot of evidence that points to the digestive tract as a gateway for autoimmunity. Okay? Now, many of you may have heard of this concept called leaky gut. Okay, that's the lay term for it, but more of the scientific term and what you'll find in the scientific literature is intestinal permeability. Okay, intestinal permeability. Because the gut wall, your intestinal lining, is permeable. It is a selectively permeable barrier system. Okay, you have these selectively permeable barriers, meaning they let things through that that are ideally that are beneficial to the body, and they keep things out that are not beneficial to the body. All right, so it's selective in what it lets through. That's what it means by selectively permeable. Right. So the gut, if you're consuming foods that are immunologically reactive, it just means that those foods are likely passing through the gut lining, which is the gut wall, and it's only one cell wall thick. Okay, so one cell thick, and you have likely some breakdown or leakiness, right? Leakiness or permeability of that gut lining, and that can come about many different ways. Okay, many different ways. But the thing is that when you change foods, if you're reacting to foods, then there is likely a degree of intestinal permeability or leakiness. Those foods that you're consuming, as they're breaking down in the GI tract, the proteins in the foods as they're breaking down, you have to think of a protein in your food as like a chain. Okay, think of it as a chain, like literally a chain with links in it, right? And let's say that chain has 12 links. Okay, it's a chain and it's 12 links long. Okay, and that's the protein. That's a protein. Okay, and each one of those links in the chain is called an amino acid. Okay, when you join amino acids together, you make a protein. Okay, so when you're eating it, it has this full 12 link chain, which is a protein in the food, right? And every food has all these unique proteins in them. And when you're eating it and you chew it up, you start this process of breaking it down. You have enzymes in your saliva, then that food goes into the stomach and you have hydrochloric acid and enzymes that start working on it there. When it leaves the stomach and that food goes into the small intestine, you have a release of enzymes from the pancreas that mix with that food. You have bile and enzymes from the gallbladder that mix with that food. And then your intestinal lining, if it's healthy, will make brush border enzymes and enzymes that work on the food. So you have all these enzymes that actually their job is to break down these chains of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Okay, so as the chain, this protein starts getting cut, the links get cut. Right, the goal is to cut this protein down into the individual links. So cut each link so it's floating by itself, so you have individual amino acids that can more easily cross through into the bloodstream, okay, in the intestinal tract, cross through. But what happens is if the gut's leaky or permeable, you get these partially digested or partially cut chains. So let's say the chain gets cut 2 times and you've got a 4-link chain, right? So we'll call that a peptide. And this 4-link chain might be small enough now to pass through a hole in the gut lining and get into the bloodstream where it drives an immune response. Okay, that immune response has been linked to the perpetuation and even triggering autoimmunity. Okay, so what we want to do is, or these diets that tend to be successful tend to remove the foods that are immunologically reactive, at least to some degree, right? That's why some people that will go on like a gluten-free diet might notice such a profound difference. And there's a few different mechanisms behind gluten that could be a problem, in addition to the permeability issue that we're talking about here and the reactivity to the gluten protein itself. But this is the concept, right? So diets that we see that tend to be successful are successful because, number one, they tend to remove immunologically reactive foods. Okay, does that make sense? So let's see. I can see some comments here. I don't know how many comments or if I'm seeing comments from all the different places. This video should be viewed on our the Office of Dr. Brad Shook Facebook page in the Greater Hickory Thyroid Support Group. And hey, Leah, yeah, watch this. This will be up later. And it should be also on YouTube, a few other places. So I'm not sure if you're commenting and I don't see it. I do see Mandy and Elizabeth, Jody. Hey, Brenda. Looks like Shauna, Karen. Yeah, you guys are welcome. Glad that you're here. So this is really important. So immunologically reactive foods. Okay, it's important to understand. So number one, it removes immunologically reactive foods. Okay, the next thing that these diets tend to do is they tend to stabilize blood sugar. Okay, now you might be wondering, like, what does blood sugar have to do with my thyroid? Okay, so we've always come back to these core concepts because what's really important to understand about being truly healthy is that everything in the body is connected. Every system in the body is connected. Though in medical school, when you're allopathic, your traditional medical doctors, your specialists are trained in school. They're trained to look at this and break it apart in ways that it can be understood. Because the human system is such a complicated system that you can't understand it unless you try to isolate the pieces of the biochemistry and physiology. So they have to learn it in these isolated pieces, right? So they can never, and no one has done it, but we understand that it's a complex system. No one has the mind to see all the chemistry or understand it. We don't even have the research to show us or to guide us with enough accuracy to understand how everything works together. We can't create life. We can't create life from nothing. So we're still learning about the body and how it works together, and it's a very complicated system. So to make it less complex and more understandable, your doctors are trained in such a way that they isolate the chemistry, and we look at things, from a traditional model in isolation. So if they're looking at your thyroid, they're just looking at TSH, right? But there's so much more chemistry that has this effect. So one of the core concepts that I want you to understand is that when you're looking at the body, when you're looking at physiology, and when you're trying to understand a complicated system, you have to try to look at it from a more comprehensive approach. And I don't like to use the word holistic but I guess I think you get the idea, you get the point, right? It's there are a lot of different inputs, things in our environment, factors that influence our physiology. So trying to optimize all of these inputs, whether it be diet, whether it be things in our environment, habits that we have, whether it be sleep or stress, all these things influence and change the physiology. So it's all connected. So when you think about it, the concept I really want to illustrate here, and I mentioned this a few times before, is think of like a spider web, right? Spider web. And if you have a spider web and you imagine that all these little, the web and all these little connections in the web are different parts of your body's biochemistry. Part of it's your digestive tract and all that physiology. Part is the endocrine system with the hormones. Part of it's the nervous system. Part of it's the immune system, and it's all this complex web. Okay, because all these systems crosstalk and they all influence one another. Okay, so when you touch a spider web and you pull it, the entire web moves, right? The entire web moves. That's how our body is. That's how our physiology is here. So blood sugar plays an important role in the rest of your hormonal physiology. Your blood sugar plays an important role in immunological physiology, in your immune system. And it does so because one of the things that's so important with blood sugar is if your blood sugar fluctuates, okay? So it doesn't have to just be high blood sugar. You could have low blood sugar. You could have swings from high to low. That causes an increase in insulin, okay? So when your insulin levels go up, insulin's inflammatory. We know that insulin drives up and stimulates the immune system. In particular, you'll drive up these proteins made by the immune system called cytokines. And these cytokines in particular, you'll increase one called interleukin 6. Okay, interleukin 6 has been heavily researched. It is being heavily researched for inflammatory processes, cancer, you name it. Okay, so it's known to be more of a pro-inflammatory cytokine, which is produced by the immune system. We know it goes up when blood sugar fluctuates. And so this is something that can drive an immune response, and it can promote inflammation. And it does a lot of other negative things physiologically because these little proteins called cytokines that the immune system makes, their job is really to cross talk with other systems of the body. So here's this interconnectedness, okay? So when you have an inflammatory response like that, so let's say your blood sugars fluctuates, let's say you go a long time without eating, right? Your blood sugar drops, and then you eat something, blood sugar comes up, and then you have a surge in insulin because that's what happens. When your blood sugar gets low, you eat some food, and the blood sugar comes up, you have a surge of insulin. The goal is to keep blood sugar steady and insulin low. Don't let it fluctuate like that, right? And that's okay if you don't understand this. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. This is part of the learning process, right? So if your blood sugar fluctuates like that and you surge your insulin, you surge interleukin 6, you're going to drive an inflammatory process. Okay, this is not good. These cytokines they will do a lot of different things. One of the things that higher inflammatory levels do, okay, higher inflammatory levels, is they'll actually blunt your cellular response to hormones, to thyroid hormones. So you can have normal quantities of hormone, but you don't have good cellular sensitivity. Okay, so I could go on and on and on about blood sugar. Sorry about these notifications. I didn't turn them off. But this is something that's really important. This is just one of many things with blood sugar. Like I talk a lot about blood sugar in some other videos, so I'll encourage you to. Sorry, looks like we might get blown up by notifications here. The blood sugar, I do a lot of videos on blood sugar. I have entire videos that are probably like an hour long on blood sugar. Whiteboard videos where I draw it out. I mean, it influences. Listen, blood sugar fluctuations will affect cortisol, your stress hormone. Blood sugar fluctuations will create major issues for sex hormones. So some of the biggest problems that we see is that blood sugar fluctuations impact sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen, progesterone. It affects cortisol. This will change neurochemistry, the chemistry of the brain. This will affect sleep. I mean, listen, I'm gonna tell you a little secret here, okay? To improve a lot of these chronic health problems that we see, hormonal problems, immune-based problems like Hashimoto's, like Graves' disease. I've worked with probably every autoimmune disease you can imagine, because people that I work with, they never come to see me. I never see people that have just one problem, ever. It is always layered, because that's just how our bodies work. You never have one problem in isolation. You just never do. It's just not how it breaks down. The system breaks down in complex ways, and there's layers of problems. So, the secret is that you have to get systemically healthy. You just have to look at the person and say, okay, what is not right here? Do we have dietary problems that are leading to inflammatory processes, that are leading to poor blood sugar regulation, that is driving an immune response? And there's a lot of things that we've seen, like patterns over the years. Talking to you guys, seeing how you're doing online, listening to what you're telling. I read a lot of the comments and hear what people are talking about in our Facebook groups and on our page. People message us, and then I've worked with thousands of people one-on-one and in groups, and we see patterns that emerge here. And the key is to get someone systemically healthy. That's the key. So many people's lives and lifestyles are so out of balance and so out of whack that we're living in a way that is incongruent with our human physiology. We're incongruent with what is with how the human system was designed to work. That's just my opinion. And I don't think there's many people that would disagree that, like, our modern lifestyle, the artificial lighting, a lot of the things that we take for granted, a lot of the stressors that are placed upon us, this is not ideal for the human system. And there's some wonderful things that have come from that, but it's not an ideal physiological state for the body, and that has consequences. So what we have to do is look at how do we get this person systemically healthy from not only a dietary perspective but a lifestyle perspective. Like, how do we get their daily rhythms back and trained with the circadian rhythms and the sun up and sundown? How do we, because your body has rhythms. You produce hormones based on the sun. It's fascinating, and at the same time, it's so obvious, right? Some of those things that we take for granted and we just forget. I don't think anyone knows how we're really intended to live with and interact with our environment anymore. That's kind of blows my mind sometimes. We forget the past a lot, and I think we lose knowledge, and that's unfortunate. But I don't want to digress too much. Hey, Robin. Hey, Brenda, hope you are doing well. Elizabeth, Tammy. So I'll talk and digress a lot here. So these diets, the dietary approaches that we've seen to be most successful, and there's not one perfect diet, tend to remove the immunological triggers, right? Foods from the diet that drive inflammation. They tend to stabilize blood sugar. And then these diets also tend to, they tend to fill in vitamin and mineral deficiencies, okay? So a lot of people are consuming diets that have more processed foods in them, that are less nutrient dense. So they don't have vitamins and minerals in them that they really should have. So then people are walking around in nutrient deficient states. And there's so much information that we could teach here, but there are numerous studies and reports where the average American, and I would say there's probably a lot of people around the world, especially in industrialized countries, do not have adequate nutritional status. They are walking around deficient in many vitamins and minerals. And a lot of this comes back to just the agriculture in general, and how we've basically abused our planet. I mean, this is just some of these things are my opinions here, but I think that there's an argument to be made that most of our farming practices are completely abusive of the earth. I mean, you can't just plant this crops over and over and not do rotation of your crops, and not not rotate the crops so that you're replenishing the soil. That all of these pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers that are being used are killing the microorganisms in the soil. It's killing a lot of that, which if you haven't studied that, some of the science behind farming is absolutely mind-blowing when you start learning about the microorganisms that get destroyed. And then you plant the same food in the soil over and over and over, and you deplete the topsoil, so the soil that the plants grow in, basically, you deplete it of minerals. And then the food looks good, but it's deficient in minerals. But it might be beautiful looking, and it might taste good, but it is deficient in these critical vitamins and minerals that we need. Now, that doesn't mean that it's pointless to eat those foods. That's not true. I mean, there's one of the theories behind there's many benefits to eating vegetables and fruits, but one of the theories is that a lot of the foods, like take a tomato for example, which is typically a food that if we're autoimmune we need to try to eliminate and see if it helps us, because that's part of the nightshade family. But tomatoes, for example, have something like 40 or 60 known toxins in them. Okay, tomatoes do, but they're low-grade toxins, and what they do is when you consume them, they actually upregulate the body's natural detoxification systems. The cytochrome P450 system, which is a detoxification system of the liver, and so these toxins at low doses actually upregulate these enzymes and help us to better eliminate things from our body. So it upregulates and it stimulates our detoxification systems naturally, right? So there's benefit in maybe just, if nothing, I think there's other benefits, but there's just for that one benefit alone, eating these fruits and vegetables is important. But I mean, so there are these issues, right? There are definitely some issues, but nutrient, vitamin, and minerals are important. So I mean, if you can raise your own food, if you can raise it in soil that's healthy, that's the best thing ever. If you can join like a co-op or something and get foods where there's like where the food's coming from, that's a fantastic thing. Those are all reasonable strategies. Now, I do personally recommend people that follow dietary approaches and plans that we've put together. We almost always recommend that they follow and utilize a good multivitamin and use a nutrient vitamin and mineral replacement strategy. Now, it might not be forever, but a lot of people do need to use something for a prolonged period of time, and we do usually see improvements in their health and physiology when we do those things. So these diets the third thing that we just discussed is they will tend to improve vitamin and mineral status. Now, I want to say this too. Dietary approaches that tend to work for, again, we're talking about that tend to work for improving thyroid physiology, improving immune system regulatory function. We see improvements with people that we see improvements in a lot of people that have a number of different types of problems when we get them systemically healthy, right? But some of the other changes that the diets how people tend to benefit from dietary change is these diets also tend to be higher in essential fatty acids, the good essential fatty acids. So they start balancing out their fat intake so that they're eating less omega-6 fats that tend to be pro-inflammatory that you tend to see in processed foods, and they start eating more foods that are higher in more of the healthier fats, more omega-3s, and their intake of omega-3s tend to go up, and then your fatty acid physiology is really pretty fascinating. But omega-3s tend to be very anti-inflammatory. They tend to go down in anti-inflammatory pathways. Omega-6 fats, they will tend to be more pro-inflammatory. And so eating a better diet that has less omega-6s, more omega-3s, balancing out that ratio naturally tends to be very, very helpful for the immune system. So here again, that's what we see, like these diets that tend to work, tend to do some of these things. Now, the next thing that they'll do, so we're talking about diets that tend to improve thyroid physiology, that we tend to see improvements with the immune system. There's not one perfect diet, first of all. so I fortunately I'm not going to share that with you because I don't know it, because there's not one, because we're all genetically different. But there are some similarities. There are some things that we do see that tend to work. We have had people report to us improvements with their health, their thyroid problems, with autoimmunity, that have followed a number of different dietary approaches. Probably most common are going to be like ketogenic diets, paleo diets, people that just do fasting. Intermittent fasting will sometimes have real improvements, and there's several different reasons that these diets likely benefit these people, right? So, and I'm going to just go back through these, but number one, they tend to remove foods that the people are reacting immunologically to, so they're having an immune response to it. They tend to balance blood sugar. They tend to improve vitamin and mineral status. They tend to balance out their fatty acids so that they have a less inflammatory chemistry. and that helps the immune system. That helps your chemistry in general, and that will all help hormonal physiology. It's just, all those things that we're talking about are critical for a healthy immune system and healthy hormonal physiology, healthy cellular responsiveness to your hormones, just general health, vibrance. It's where you got to have those basics. Those are basics. The next thing that it tends to do is these diets tend to improve digestion. Okay, so we talked initially, the first thing that we talked about was how the change in these diets tends to reduce immunologically reactive foods, right? You tend to eat less of foods that are more likely to be driving an immune response and perpetuating autoimmunity or exacerbating the immune system. And so when you change the diet, and most of the diets do tend to have, now some people, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, like there are people that have followed diets that are on more of the extreme, like either like a carnivore diet, which is, if you don't know about the carnivore diet, it's like all meat, only meat. And then on the other end, they followed like vegan diets, right, which is all plants. And these people all of them have reported, I've seen, not every person that's done it, but there have been people that have followed just about any dietary approach that will report to you that they have had some very significant benefits from it. And I have listened to people talk about, like, for example, the carnivore diet that are autoimmune that have done incredibly well. Now, I don't know what that means long term. I don't know what that means for their long-term health, if that's an ideal sustainable diet, but there's absolutely, they have improved, and it's hard to say exactly why, right? I mean, is it because of the nutrient density of the meat, or is it an elimination-based benefit, right? So they're removing a lot of the foods that they're immunologically reactive to, I'm not saying that those are right or wrong. So, same thing with like vegan diets. The people will say that they are, that they do significantly better with them. But I've seen difficulty with both ends of the spectrum. I've never actually worked with anyone that went on a carnivore diet, but I have worked with people that were on vegan diets, and I've just found it, that there tend to be some deficiencies and things that will come up, and it's a bit more difficult because I think it's difficult to do those diets correctly. But all of these diets, most of these diets that we're going to recommend and that we see people do well with, they tend to improve digestion. And my personal opinion is that a diet that incorporates a diverse amount of plant-based fibers, that does have meat for certain minerals and vitamins is important, and that those things tend to improve the digestive tract and digestion in general, and the GI tract bacterial balance. I think those are some key pieces, because the diet will, the successful diets tend to heal the gut. They tend to help the gut heal. They tend to improve balance of the microbiome, which is the flora, everything that lives basically inside of your digestive tract, which is very, very important. Very, very important. We're learning so much. Even today, we've learned over the past 10 or 15 years a tremendous amount about the microbiome, this environment in our gut, but we're learning much, much more about it and our symbiotic relationship with these bacteria and organisms in our digestive tract. So it's very important. Most of these diets will tend to heal the gut. Those tend to be some of the really key pieces to effective dietary strategies. And I would say that I will say this: my personal strategies for this tend to be dietary approaches that are closer to like an autoimmune paleo type of dietary intervention. We working with people, we saw and we tried different dietary strategies, and it depends on what you're willing, what kind of changes you're willing to make. But we found that whenever we put together a diet, it was probably, the dietary plan that we use now is probably closest to like an autoimmune paleo type of approach. And it tends to work pretty well for people. And it tends to be, if you do it right, it tends to teach people how to eat healthy for a lifetime and and do it in a way that's sustainable, so that they're just systemically healthier, right? That's one of the problems that I have with a lot of diets out there. They're not sustainable for the long term, and because they don't really teach you how to, in my opinion, eat a diet that will keep you healthy. It's a short-term strategy, and it's not long-term. Like, so, I don't want to digress too much on this topic, but so I see people that will go on like ketogenic diets, and they'll feel better, and that's awesome. So I'm not knocking it. Like, I have my own personal opinions, but I don't tell people not to do something necessarily if they want to. If you're willing to try to make some change and it makes sense to you, well, then that's your decision, and that's okay. I'm okay with you doing those things, but making decisions for yourself is important. But I find that people that like go on ketogenic diets, they tend to do it because they want to lose weight, and then they go on a ketogenic diet, and there's all kinds of health conditions that I've been shown to benefit, and there's a lot of great research going on for a lot of different things. I mean, I like ketogenic diets. I just don't like them long term, at least based on what I know today. Because I'll see people that go on ketogenic diets to lose weight. So let me just tell you, so they have thyroid problems. I'll work with them, and then we'll get to a point where they'll be like, okay, I want to lose more weight. I want to try a ketogenic diet. What do you think about that? I'm like, oh, well, if you want to try it, how are you going to do it? Because some people, will do ketogenic diets that are really heavy in dairy and other things, and that may not be the best approach for some people. And so they'll go on these diets, and they might lose weight initially, but most people lose weight initially on the ketogenic diet, especially initially, right, the first month or so, because they deplete a lot of water. They burn through their glycogen, which is their stored blood sugar in their muscles, their liver. They burn through that, and there's a lot of water retained when you have stored sugar in the muscles and liver. So when you deplete that glycogen, that stored sugar in the muscle and liver, you lose water. So you'll lose a lot of water weight really quickly with ketogenic diet. Now, yes, you get into ketosis, you start burning fat for energy. Yeah, you can definitely lose a lot of weight long term, but you will hit a plateau. You will hit a plateau. And so there's a few reasons I don't like the plateau. When you hit a plateau, what do you do? Like where are you just going to cut your calories? You're going to try to exercise or exercise more? I don't think it's sustainable. And here's my opinion on diets. Okay, every diet has to vary. Your diet cannot be the same, and it has to vary. So my personal thing is, my personal opinion on this is, your diet has to vary. Like, I like the dietary approach we use is probably closest to what would be considered like autoimmune paleo. I'll tend to have people on that for several months, 1 to 3, sometimes 6 months. Then I'll transition them, depending on what's going on, depending on what we know about their health, depending on how they respond to the diet. I might transition them into a different type of dietary approach, slightly different, that's focusing more on really balancing blood sugar a little bit more effectively, stabilizing hormones and detoxification, like upregulating the body's natural detoxification systems, and trying to clear out all of these chemicals and toxins that we're exposed to. And if you don't know about the toxins, you just do a little bit of research. I'm going to be teaching a little bit more about this in the coming weeks. But I've got a ton of videos on these environmental chemicals and things in our environment. Ton of videos. Just you can look on our YouTube or our Facebook, the Office of Dr. Brad Shook video page. So I'll take them through this diet, and that can be 6 months to a year, 3 months to 6 months, but even up to a year. And then I'll recommend changing into a dietary approach that is very cyclical. Okay, so for example, I might follow like an autoimmune paleo style of diet, but I'm going to vary my carbohydrates tremendously. Or I might add in a few things that you wouldn't normally have on an autoimmune paleo diet. But this is after I've already gone through getting my body a lot more systemically healthy, getting my gut healthier, improving my oral tolerance to foods, meaning I can consume foods that I couldn't consume before because now my gut's healthier. Now I make enzymes more efficiently. Now I have better systemic health, and I can tolerate things that I couldn't tolerate when I was sick, when I was more on that unhealthy spectrum. Okay, when I was closer to, listen, no matter where you're at, if you're breathing, you're on a spectrum of health. Okay, so on one end, it's going to be very poor health, near death, and on the other end, it's it's optimal human health that we can only, like, very few people, the pinnacle that people reach, right? And that's combined with performance and longevity. Okay, you're somewhere on that spectrum. When I work with people, I just view you on this spectrum somewhere, and my goal is to move you closer to that optimal health. And my goal is to trick you into thinking that I'm just trying to get you to feel okay, when I'm actually trying to get you to be amazingly healthy. That's really what the goal is. So this is I don't, sorry, I'm getting some I get some comments here. Hey everybody, thank you for joining me. Let me finish my thought here, because my natural ADD just kicks in. Drinking out of my cup. I want you guys to see this. So it says, "What I love you." Check this out. My wife gave this to me. My kids on here. This is one of my favorite cups that I have. So let me finish what I was saying. Right. So the dietary approach that I'll follow will be cyclical. So it will be based on, so you get healthy, you get healthier, and that's just, you get healthier, right? You go through like the dietary approaches that we use. That's my goal. Walk people through these phases of things that we know tend to be essential to get them healthier, to improve immune regulatory function, to get their hormone physiology, for them to feel better and be closer to, to living the life that they're intended to live, to accomplish the things that they're meant to accomplish. Okay? And then when you get to this healthier state, which could be 3 months, it could be 18 months, okay? But you get this healthier point. Here's what I really like to do. What I personally do, is I follow basically a 1-year cycle, okay? So I will follow a diet that's maybe more like an autoimmune paleo diet, right? Maybe more like that. But I will, so let's say like right now, let's talk about what I'm doing right now. So right now, I follow a diet that's pretty close to that. But I eat pretty low carbohydrates. Now I follow, how I track myself is I follow and I track my macronutrients. I look at my protein in grams, I look at my carbohydrates, I look at my fat in grams. This is not that hard. There's a ton of technology today that makes this super easy. So I use MyFitnessPal on my smartphone, okay? Super easy to do. I've been tracking mine for over like a year and something. Excuse me. Pardon me. I've been tracking my macros and stuff for over a year, every single day. It's not a problem. It's like autopilot. Once you do it, it's easy. Okay. So right now I'm doing like lower carbohydrates. I maintain a certain amount of protein, and there's a formula that I use for this, but I maintain a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of fats, because you have to eat protein. It's essential. Amino acids, they come from protein. That's essential. That's why they're called essential amino acids. They're essential to life. Essential fatty acids, I make sure I get my fat in, because they are also essential to life. That's why they're called essential fatty acids, okay? And then the carbohydrates, there's no essential carbohydrates, okay? There's not. But you don't go cutting your carbs to zero if you want to, if you're not, in my opinion, if you're not already to a healthier state, and if you don't already have the ability to stabilize your blood sugar and have healthier adrenals, you don't cut carbs. I don't personally like that. There are plenty of people that would say, I cut my carbs, it's the best thing I ever did, and I'm so happy for you, but that's not been my observation clinically working with people. But I'm not saying it doesn't work, because I've had plenty of people tell me it does, so I'm sure it does, okay, for some people to go, they're sick and they go straight keto and they do great. And that's awesome. So, there's different reasons that's going to work for some people, and for a lot of people it's not. Okay, there's different reasons. So what I'll do is, I'm like right now I have like low carbohydrates. So I'll eat less than probably about half a gram of carbs per pound of body weight. So I'm about 180. So I'll consume about 90 grams of carbs per day. Some days, so when I want to be like leaner and I want to lose more body fat, now those carbohydrates plus exercise, I will lose a lot of body fat. I'll get really lean doing that. And if I want to lose a lot of body fat, I'll go down to less than that. I'll go down to like 50 grams of carbs per day, and I'll still exercise, and I'll still eat all my other protein and fats. I'll still do that. Now, what happens is, so let's say this is summertime, so I want to be leaner. If I'm going to be out and, I'm going to be out and about and I just want to, if I'm going to the beach or something and I just, want to get rid of my gut, then I'll try to do that, right? I'll try to cut back a little bit and get rid of my love handles. But here's the thing, like I can't sustain that forever, because what's going to happen? Your body is going to get used to that calorie intake, and it doesn't matter. So how many of you have gone through this process where you'll eat a food, you'll eat a diet, and you'll start an exercise program, and you do great, and then you stop getting results, and either you stop losing weight, and you're doing the same thing you were doing before, but you're not making progress. How many people have done that? A lot of people have done that, and here's why. Your body will always adapt to the stress that you place upon it. You have to vary the stress that you place upon your body. You have to vary your caloric intake. That all has to vary. It has to vary. You have to plan variation. And guess what? It is liberating, because it is awesome. Because what you do is, like what I'm doing right now is I'm eating lower carbohydrates, still plenty of fat. And then let's see. So it's August. So the end of this month, probably September, like the very end of this month, I'm going to shift to eating higher carbohydrates. Like I'll probably eat a ton of carbs. Now, here's the thing. I'm exercising. So I have a goal. I have a goal to increase muscle mass and improve my physiological function. I mean, I'm going to be gaining weight, and I know that. I'm great with it because it's going to be getting into the fall. I'm not going to be like, I'm not trying to look better as much. Like I'm going to be, it's not like I'm going to be out at a pool or something and just trying to, not have like a bunch of rolls, which is cool. I mean, everyone to each their own, right? But I want to be like leaner. So right now I'm doing this slightly different approach. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase my carbs. So then I get to eat a lot more carbohydrates. I'm going to be exercising, which I'll change my exercise routine to specifically help me to add lean muscle. And I might gain a little bit of body fat, but I'm great with that because it's part of the plan. So I'll follow that plan to some degree until about December. And guess what? It's when all the holidays that I'm going to be partaking in. So I'll have Halloween, and I'll have Thanksgiving, and I do celebrate Christmas. So I'll have all these holidays that I'll get to actually eat food, right? Now, granted, you're going to be like, well, what if I have to follow like autoimmune? Well, guess what? There's all kinds of awesome stuff you still get to eat, but you get to eat higher carbs. And when you get healthier, you can add other foods into your diet. That's what I always tell people, like you need to add foods into your diet, try to add foods back in to regain, to see how you respond to them. If you can do testing, then do testing to help give you guidance on that. But so you add foods in and you enjoy yourself. Right? You have fun because it's stressful going places and events and parties and not eating anything, and you feel, it's easy to feel kind of like an outcast. It is, but I mean, don't. I mean, you have a right to choose and just, you shouldn't feel bad about making personal choices. You should actually, it's an opportunity to kind of talk about your health and how you're working on getting yourself healthier and being healthier, and you can be an inspiration to people. So anyway. So I'll do that through about December, and then starting about January, I'll start tapering my carbohydrates down. So during this period of time in the fall, I'm going to be working on getting stronger and adding more muscle mass, which is very important for performance, for health and longevity. As we age, it's very important to maintain muscle mass and strength. It's very, very important. So I'm not talking about becoming a shredded bodybuilder, though you could do that, okay? You could do that. People, if you're out there and you're like, hey, I'm like a CrossFit athlete, okay, you can do that with what I'm talking about. But you can also do that if you can't do a push-up or it's hard for you to walk. You can still get much, much healthier with this similar strategy. So, okay, you hit January, and then I start tapering my carbohydrates, and I shift my workout and the types of metabolic stress I'm placing on my body. Now, this might seem a bit technical, especially if you have no familiarity with exercise and fitness or really looking at diet this way. But I want you to understand, like, I will change my diet all the way into the summer, and in summer I'll go even lower carbohydrates to be much more lean, and then I'll have added muscle, and then I'll be leaning out significantly, and then when summer comes around, I'll be in the best possible shape that I can, and I'll feel good and I'll look better and I'll have, feel better about myself. I feel good with exercise, but that is periodization. That is a planned process of dietary change. And guess what? It's pretty amazing. You don't have to do it exactly like I just said. The only thing that really has to happen is that the diet has to change. You can't stay at no carbs forever. So guess what? Because you're going to hit a plateau, and then you might gain some weight, and then you're going to be frustrated, and you're going to be like, this is not working anymore, and I still don't have my goals, right? That's what you're going to do. That's what I've seen happen. So just know, like, okay, you have to go on this. So I can go into ketosis, and I will go into ketosis in the summer sometimes, especially when I'm really low carb. I'll be in ketosis. I'm not opposed to ketosis. And if I was really concerned about like a particular health condition, I might stay in ketosis for a longer period of time. And you can do fasting, but fasting isn't really a diet. Fasting is more of a lifestyle. Okay, fasting is more of a lifestyle. Fasting is really condensing your window of eating. That's really what it is. And I think that fasting is perfectly healthy for a lot of people. I don't typically recommend that for people initially, though. I don't recommend that for people I start working with initially. We start with basics and baby steps, and let's just like stabilize blood sugar and get you to a place where you can eat the right types of foods, right? Let's do that first. Let's get those changes, and then let's start working in some other things to try and get you, I'm going to trick you. I'm going to get you that from where you are in that state of not optimal health. I'm going to trick you into helping you to get healthy in a sustainable way, hopefully, for the long term. Teach you, right? We're gonna not gonna feed you a fish. We're gonna teach you how to fish. That's the real goal, is to help you in a way that we can really make a difference long term. I have gone a while here. Let's see, was there anything else with the dietary approach? The main things we said was that there's no perfect diet. There's a lot of different diets that can likely work. The things that we have seen, the diets that we have seen work best, and what the dietary approach I tend to recommend to people is probably closest diet is probably like autoimmune paleo. The keys are to, these diets tend to work because they remove immunological triggers. They tend to balance blood sugar. They improve vitamin and mineral status. They improve essential fatty acid status, which helps with inflammation. They improve digestion, right? These are some of the things that we tend to see. The other stuff, let's see. See if there's anything else that I can think of here. I don't think that there's really anything else. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that we could talk about. There's a ton of other stuff, but I've rambled long enough. I think about this that more information is just going to be overwhelming, more overwhelming than this. But the main thing here is, there's a lot of different things you can consider doing. Listen, if you're trying to figure out like what to do with this, my goal is to change as many people's lives as possible. And we observed, because I do work with people clinically. Like I work with people, virtual consulting is what I do more than anything. I work with people across the United States. I work with people in other countries. We do, we communicate via video, via phone. And I help people to really look at what's going on with their health. And then, typically in an ideal scenario, we can get advanced diagnostic testing that helps us to match what's going on with you clinically with your history. We match this to see if everything, what's actually happening, so we can come up with a very specific and what I'll call bio-individualized approach. So we can really take a tailored approach to trying to get you healthy. The testing and the health history together give us the very best information to formulate, the best starting point we can possibly come up with. And one of the things that I noticed and I knew right away was not everyone can afford to do this. And I was like, how do we make a difference with the millions of people that are dealing with these problems that have no way or maybe no means, or it's just to go through this type of individualized process with me. And so what we did was I sat down with my team and we said, look, what can we do to help people, give them this guidance that we've, like all these lessons that we've learned, how can we put this into some type of simple diet or plan or something that's simple to implement that anyone can get access to? How do we do that? And so that's when we came up with our own dietary plan. We call it the transformation program. And what we're doing like right now is we're doing something called a transformation challenge. And I'm going to try to do this. We're going to try to have classes like where we enroll people. This is our second one right now that we're taking people through. We're enrolling right now up until August 12th, but it's called the 6-week transformation challenge. And what we try to do is take all these lessons that we've learned clinically and we put this into basically our dietary plan, lifestyle recommendations, things that we want you to try to optimize from a lifestyle perspective. And then also we lay out all of the nutritional supplementation, like the vitamins and minerals and things that we see that most people need to utilize. And we put that into a program that's video-based and has guidebooks. And I'm constantly updating it so that I can make it as good as possible. And we even have daily videos that come out that try to keep you on track, where I'm there with you and I go, hey, it's day 1, week 1. Here's what you need to be focusing on, right? Short videos. And then we have video walkthroughs of our guidebooks, and we have a support community. So we're trying to make something that anyone can get access to. And literally, we're giving people access to this for $1. Like literally $1, you can join the Transformation Challenge. You get access to our membership side and to the Transformation community. People are always asking us like, hey, why is it $1? Well, it's $1 because there has to be some kind of exchange. Because listen, I've given this dietary plan away for free before, and I've said like, look here. Well, it wasn't in this form. It was like similar, but I was like, hey, anyone wants our dietary approach and stuff, I'll give it to you. Just let us know. We give it to people, and people they didn't value it at all. Now I know $1 is only $1, but there's a process you have to go through. If you have to pay for something and you take the time to pay for something, there's an exchange there. The other thing is, if someone really needed this and they couldn't afford $1 or whatever, we'd give it to you. So I want you to know that. We will absolutely give it to you if you're serious about it. But there had to be an exchange. I've just observed, like, if people don't pay for things, they often don't value it. And I'm telling you, like, we could, the program and things that we put together are, we're trying to make a world-class program for people to follow that is simple to implement to change as many people's lives as we possibly can. Because at the end of the day, like, what really is left for us here? I just, from a perspective of just a human perspective, that's what my goal is change one person's life at a time. If we can do that, we'll have a positive impact on your family, your community, and that's how we change the world. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do personally, is just make a big difference that way. So, if you want to try to, you want to use like what we've put together, then you can join our Transformation Challenge. You can just go to thyroidprogram.com. We'll post it somewhere if it's not posted, and you can read about it and you can join if you want to join it. If not, though, there's a ton of information here that you can run with. There's a lot of free resources and things that you can do. There's no shortage of information. If anything, there's information overload on the internet. But I want you to know, like, if you need help or you have questions, just let us know. We'll do the best that we can to help you. And I'm going to try to keep teaching. I'm going to try to keep teaching you. We have hundreds of videos that are free for you to watch and review. Go to the Office of Dr. Brad Shook, click on our videos tab, and you can, on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, just go to YouTube and you can search there. I think a lot of our live stream videos that have been going to YouTube, the description's wrong, just because we're using a broadcast software here on my phone that broadcasts to multiple channels for us. It just helps us leverage and access people that aren't on Facebook or aren't on YouTube, and it's kind of glitchy that way. But I just wanted to let everyone know, like, we're going to do everything we can to help you out. I do appreciate you all, and we're going to try to continue to do things that we can have a really big impact with a lot of people. If you need help and you do want some assistance working like one-on-one, I will do my best to work with you and your healthcare team and give you a perspective on this that's a systems-based approach, looking at the whole picture, and help you to optimize your health. We're not just trying to, it's interesting because people will sometimes ask me, hey, do you treat anything? And I'm like, I don't treat a single disease or condition. Nothing. That's the wrong way to, I think, look at our health. What you do is you look at the biochemistry and how the chemistry is adapting and where you see altered biochemistry. And you ask yourself, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And then you look at the person's lifestyle, you look at their history, you look at what they've been through, you look at when did these problems start? What are the likely triggering events? What are the likely things that are perpetuating and driving this process? You know? And then you try to help them reverse engineer the things that are pushing these problems along. You know, and you help them unwind that mess and get them healthy again. And I'm here to tell you, like, the one of the best things that you can do is to like reflect on that and actually, you know, I think when we send people through our intake process, it's extremely detailed. It's like an online intake, and it takes some people days, like they have to think about it to complete it. And it doesn't, I mean, some people do it pretty quickly, but it's intentional that it is that detailed, because that information, we can use that to get a better idea of triggers and drivers of the problem. Okay, so anyway, appreciate y'all. Hope y'all have a wonderful night. I got to get to bed. It's bedtime, and I'm sure someone's probably commented here because that's a big part of getting your body healthy, is setting this rhythm. Okay, so appreciate y'all. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, comments, anything, I'm actually going to be posting this to our blog, and I'll share it to the group when we have all the details and stuff. After I've had time to kind of write this out and put it in a post, I'll post it in a text format, and we'll have some links and things for you all. If you'd like for us to share that, we'll be happy to. But I do appreciate y'all. Hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful night, and I do appreciate all your comments and spending this time with me. Hopefully it's been helpful. But I do appreciate y'all. Hope y'all have a good night. Thanks.